For our Canadian lifters, pure passion, real results, what you put in your body should matter. Pure Vita Labs PVL supplements are clean, tested, and approved, powering athletes for over 25 years. They also power the KOTL podcast. You could trust PVL. Use code KOTL15 for partnership pricing at PVL.com. Back Lapadat, we got Tony Cliffe. We already started talking. I figured we'd start recording. But so Tony, we were just talking about how you began powerlifting at 16. It was the early 2000s. You're 38, been powerlifting over 20 years in equipment, raw. You won world titles, medaled at worlds and internationals so many freaking times, at so many different levels, from juniors to open to in equipment, out of equipment. And we were talking about like how you've lasted in peaking at 38, despite 20 years in the game. Oh, and by the way, before that, were you not into judo?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think we spoke about that last time I was on. So I'm 39 now as well, by the way. A month and a bit into being 39.
It's the wildest. So what do you think when you hear, people are doubting guys, like we were just saying, like a Taylor Atwood said, because he's 34 and like he'll never be the same again. Now, injuries can change careers in all sports. Got you. But when you're peaking at 39 and been in this for, it's not like you're fresh 39, 20 years in the game, and then judo as well, which is high impact. You're literally scrapping it out with other guys. What do you attribute it to? How are you still around peaking like this?
Well, I don't know, honestly, but I probably didn't have the level of intensity that you see in some of some of the juniors come along and they're smashing world records and they're like Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Do we think he'll last till 39? Maybe not, right? But does it matter? Probably not for him.
He could set the world on fire before that, right?
Yeah, like I wasn't Jesus when I was 24. I was like 74 kilos or something, and like skinny, and didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? And I think for probably Taylor's probably been around a lot longer, but he's picked, like you said, he's picked up a few injuries, and I've managed to avoid that. I put my avoidance of that in my plus 30 years down to switching between equipped and raw. We'll probably have a chat about equipped lifting and why I still bother like putting that stuff back on. But my body at the minute is like craving putting some knee wraps and some suit on to save my hips and my knees. So, but we can get to that in a bit. But I think there probably is a bit of that. And I spent a long period of my training career only training like twice a week. They're genuinely training twice a week. And I think when I've heard you have conversations subsequently with people like Sam Watt, who, he's 50, is he mid-50s now? I don't know.
I think he's in his 50s regardless, early 50s. But for anyone listening, one best lifter at like 50, absolutely jacked, freak human, hitting PRs at 50.
Yeah. But he did the same thing. So I know he went off and he had a break and he did his football, but when he was training, he came in the gym and he hammered it for a couple of sessions, and that was it. That was like his entire week of training. And I'm not saying that's perfect for training optimally, and you're not going to get super strong doing that, but you certainly avoid a lot of injuries. You avoid the risk of hitting trying to train under fatigue and all that. It just doesn't happen because you don't give yourself the option to do that. Perhaps that's part of it. Perhaps it's not, and it's just luck, and it's just genetics, and there's a myriad of reasons that it could be, and I'm not going to try and guess what they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably
but I've been pretty sensible with training, and if you do feel like something is you're getting an injury, or you can sense something coming on, that you do something about it early in that process. And when I'm managing injuries now, like, man, that's normal for me. Like that's part of training. Like I've got a hip problem, I've got a knee problem, my left side, I've got like a shoulder thing that comes and goes. Like it's just normal. Like, so when someone talks to me about how are you feeling and are you fresh and you're ready for the competition, well, that's like a sliding scale of depending on what side of the bed I got out of that day. It's just, one of those things.
So was it okay? So I got a couple questions there because that's interesting.
I guess it puts in perspective because everybody has some issues here and there. So essentially what you're saying is you'll never be fresh. You'll never feel 100%, but that's okay. You could still perform.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between having soreness, tension, etc., or full-on injury. And you're
but even I feel like I've competed even with full-on injuries.
okay. Well,
so I've not, and you've probably had this with other guys that have been on this podcast as well, where they just go, well, and I know you had it with Keiko, where he's gone, well, I've not had a rest for, I don't know, what is it, like 3-4 years, and he said I was going to have a break, and then this happened and that happened, and then I did another competition. Well, I've been like that for probably that full 20 years.
Looking at your open powerlifting, you're not lying. It's ridiculous. No. It's crazy schedule.
Yeah, and going from, but I think the switching between the raw and the equipped has really helped, because I have this joke with quite a lot of older lifters that I go to competition, and they ask how you feeling, and I go, well, I gave up my last set of injuries for my current set of injuries, which when you switch in and out of kit, like the prime movers are the same, but where the support in the kit supports you is usually where you have a problem when you're lifting raw, like your knees and your hips, and and I think that's maybe that's kind of normal for old farts that are lifting, and I feel like I'm one of them at the minute.
Well, yeah, probably, but so you do jump in and out of equipment, obviously. Do you think because like talking about Taylor Atwood, like his chief rival who's back, Shell Backlund from Norway. I mean, they're 1-1 at the World Championships, and he's come back to the classic for this Worlds. He was talking about, this is years ago on the podcast, how he had some severe hip issues, and then he jumped into equipment and won the world title, beat Oleg, who was like won 17 years. I don't know how to tell you, I'm telling the listeners, but 17 years in a row. He was like the GOAT, 74 in equipment. It was an amazing run. And he went in equipment, beat him, and talking to him in DM sometimes. And Shell was like, equipment saved my lifting career, where I thought I was at the end and I was done in terms of raw lifting because his hips were just screaming at him, like serious problems, impingements, the whole nine. Jumped in equipment, and I guess it just alleviated, but he could stay strong, stay lifting, and now he's back again. Now, to what degree he feels comfortable, are we going to see top end? He's going to be able to push Taylor. I'm not sure. Only time will tell, but is there something to that? Like, do you think if some raw lifters, like, look at every now and then, just throw a suit on, straps down, let the hips relax a little bit, and do you think there's something there to it?
Yeah, absolutely do. Yeah. He won the Europeans a couple of days ago as well.
That's right. With a phenomenal squat. A huge, he looks like he's strong.
347 something. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Like,
474.
Yeah. He's coming.
He's going to be phenomenal.
He's I messaged him actually right after he won that. I went, how are the hips, old man?
What did he say?
Because maybe he hasn't replied yet.
Oh shit! Well, that's not great.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, ask me in a month.
But I do think there's definitely something in it. Yeah, there's definitely something in it. And I know lots of raw lifters that have never worn kit and don't understand the appeal. And then you see like the new knee sleeves that are coming out, and you go, well, maybe you'll start to change your mind.
Yeah. Well, it's true, and even like. It depends on even if like you don't have to be fully kitted. Maybe is it possibly even like straps down? Just
yeah. You don't need to be fully loaded. Like even just a pair of knee wraps, just to take some of that pressure off as well. Like it can definitely help. And just like using it like you'd use an accessory, or like a squat into a box, or just a change in movement, like just to change that movement pattern and take the pressure off where it normally hits. I think that is a underutilized area. And the more people we can encourage to try equipment as well, especially in our country where it's like, dying, like it's on its arse really, the equip lifting in the UK. So like European equip that's happening like literally now. I mean, I don't know if the supers have finished by now, but they probably have.
Yeah.
But yes, it's have been happening this week. The GB team's done a good job. They've done really well, but there aren't a lot of juniors. There are no sub juniors. There's literally one or two juniors like Ray over in the States, like coming through. That we've got to encourage people to come and give it a go. And honestly, we're seeing success as well, which is which is great. But is that a dying side of the sport? And we'll talk a little bit about World Games and why people are really into that. And I have a World Games medal upstairs, so I can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's before we go into World Games and equipment, and I do want to talk about all those. Funny you bring it up, but to the point of the working out, training 2 times a week, which is interesting to me. Now, would this be something you're doing in the off season where it's like, look, I'm going to maintain, I can go hard. The recovery is beautiful because you got a couple days in between, and you could do some assistance stuff that isn't necessarily going to bang up, in between if you want to as well. But is it, or are you peaking sometimes with?
Mate, I would not recommend only training once a week.
Okay.
Right, just to get that out there now. But I spent a good, I don't know, 7 or 8 years where that's all I had. That's all I had. Like, that's all I could commit. And I managed to improve, still only training twice a week. And I think, like I said, I think that saved quite a lot of me in like, when I was in my 20s. That's all I could do. So that's what I did. But I trained like 2.5 to 3 hours in those sessions. Oh, okay. So they were like full on training session. I'd squat and then I'd bench and then I'd do like a squat variation, and that would take like 2.5 hours because it was probably like a proper session. And then benching would be like all the volume you could imagine, and then all of the assistance work, and then all of the assistance work that's supposed to support the rest of that week's training, which was mental. And I would not recommend anyone to do that, but you can do it, and you can survive it, and you can peak in for competition, and you can do all other stuff. You just have to, if you have to, right?
Right.
You find a way. I'm not saying you should,
but it's possible.
Exactly. It's possible. It's possible to do anything, right? So if you wanted to train 7 days a week and and compete, you'd make it work. And if you wanted to train once, you could probably find a way. But no one's gonna say that's optimal.
Right. And I think at the time in your 20s, how big were you?
I know. I went from when I first started, I'd finished uni, and when I did my first competition after uni, I think I was like under 90s, and then by the end of my 20s, I was in the 120 kilo, the 125 kilo class, but I was a really light 125, like 112, 113. So I'd put on a fair bit, but going from like mid 80 kilos, probably similar to what you weigh now.
That's right.
No?
Yeah.
You've not got fat in the last 4 years that we've been speaking.
No,
you're still six-pack Lapadat, right?
That's right. We're still floating around there. Because I think the bigger you are, I've talked to Jesus, and he was saying, I think the bigger you are, you can do stuff like that. Because he was saying as well, like he has and Ray has talked about it as well, like one major squat day a week. And some people but I think when you're a larger human being and you're shifting larger weights, your training's totally different. And some people who are like, I want to train like Jesus. Are you an 83? Because that's not going to work for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I know exactly where they are with that. And I think when you get into my age as well, and like I'll do a squat session, I get to the next one and go, I'm definitely not recovered. I can probably get through it, but I don't feel like I'm recovered enough to actually do anything and push. Like I can probably just about meet my program numbers. And now I've had like a deload week in the last week. We had a British powerlifting squad session yesterday, and I went, like, I'm just going to do like basically nothing. I'm not going to do any squatting. I'm just going to have like a week off, and then I'm going to hit the 4 or 5 weeks left to go into Worlds, because I was like my knees were sore, my hips were sore. I just feel like I'm training myself backwards, so I'm just going to stop. So all I've done this week is like a bit of benching, and then I deadlifted at the squad yesterday and did a bit of light bench there as well. And I haven't squatted. And probably next time I squat, it'll have been a week and 2 days. And I feel like that doesn't feel like a long amount of time when you feel like I do after training. You go, yeah, that's probably about right now, which is nuts. So I'm like, oh, do you feel like you're getting weaker in between sessions? I'm like, no, I'm just like not dying in between sessions, which is
I think the fatigue management is something that some people get weary about. Like some people feel like that might be something that adjustments that somebody, for instance, like a Taylor would start doing that. Like at 34, injuries are starting to catch up. And it might be like, you don't have to maybe do as much as you think you have to do. Maybe it's just adjusting and you can still get more out of your body. It depends, because obviously you're 38 and peaking now and coming in with a 955.5, like, and who knows what you're going to do at Worlds. And people would think like, oh, you're taking a week off. That's crazy. But it's like you're listening to your body being like, no, I'm good. I listen to the body. If it's like I'm being tough, I just want to tough it out. But your hips will be like, I really couldn't care less how tough your heart is, bud.
Yeah. It's not going to help you. So just stop. And I think some of the stuff I've been through with the equip side and doing that and really maxing out really often because you have to in the kit, because otherwise you literally can't use it. You feel yourself like just training yourself into the ground, and like every time you put the kit on and go in the gym, you feel like you're going backwards from your last session. You really want to try and avoid that.
Right.
But I've done it. So like, when you come to taking the kit off and then going, all right, I'm coming in the gym today and I've got my program in front of me and I feel really motivated, but my body just goes, not today, mate. You just have to listen.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with my training right now, is trying to be smart as well as pushing. Like, because I train hard, like, and I've trained hard for every competition I've done, but sometimes you get to that point where you just go, not today.
Yeah. even just pulling back a little bit, and just not going out, like you can get something done, but you don't have to hit just because it's on your program.
But it's harder. It's hard, like, be it RPE or be it percentages or be it whatever you're doing. It's difficult. It's very difficult as a lifter to make that self-assessment on a given day and go,
right.
Actually, I should just stop because this is not going to help me. This is going to hinder me in the long run. I think once you get to a certain training age, it becomes easier to have that conversation with yourself. You're not so worried that, because I haven't managed to get through that particular session or didn't hit that particular number, that you're not too concerned that it's going to affect the following week, because actually the following week might be fine. You carry on with the original plan. You might just be able to do that, because, well, mainly because your original plan isn't something you've never done before. I think when you're first doing this, if you're a junior and you're doing it, or you're first into competing and you're looking at your next session and you go, I've never hit that before, and it's going to be really, really horrendous mentally to be able to get through that. Whereas I'm looking at a session and going, well, there's no PBs in there, it'll be fine. Just get through it.
Yeah.
Because the PBs happen way at the end, and maybe never.
Well, this is true too. So you were talking about World Games. I wanted to ask you, A, about your World Games experience, and B, obviously the chatter about World Games going raw. Staying equipped, likely as well as raw. Now, there's no official announcements. Let me just say this, but we all seen, Gaston's comments and the writing on the wall here. So maybe tell us a little bit about your experience at the World Games and what you think is going to happen.
Yeah. Like, I've only done one, right? I've only done one World Games, and that was,
what year was that?
Birmingham. What year was that? Was that last year? Year before?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Was it last year? Okay,
so
it was last year. So that was my first ever one. So equipped wise, it's been a real battle for me to ever make the podium and do this, and certainly not qualifying for a World Games. So obviously I did Dubai 2019, as you remember, bombed, and it was a disaster. That is still a record in British powerlifting, actually, 1 out of 9 at an equipped competition. So I'll claim that.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. You got to struggle to beat that, right?
Yeah, struggle to beat that. Yeah, exactly.
So that was the year before the qualifier was supposed to be for the World Games, and then the World Games got pushed back. So that was my attempt in the year that I won the World Classic to really have a go at the World Equipped, and I took obviously some massive gambles, and we talked about in the last podcast, and which didn't work out. But then the following year was supposed to be the year for qualifying for the World Games. I was like, okay, well, I need to make a total and I need to just make the podium, and then hopefully I get an invite. And that was kind of where I wanted to go. And then it got delayed, and then I had to wait a couple of years before I could redeem that Dubai competition. And then I did that, qualified. I came second at the World Equipped to Bitchkov, who's, if anyone doesn't know who Alexei Bitchkov is, go and Google him or something. He's won the World Powerlifting Championships in the under 120 kilo class in the equipped side for, I don't know, what, 8 years in the trot.
Yeah, he's running it.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. So my intention was just try and qualify for the World Games and get there, and try and make the podium, because it's merged weight classes at the World Games. So your under 120s and 120 pluses are all in one category, and then same underneath that. I think there's like a heavyweight section for the 105s and 93s, and then there's a middleweight section and like a lightweight section. So like merged weight classes. It's not proper weight classes. So again, everything's all on points, which is not ideal, but we can talk about GL points. But it was really favourable for the under 120s against the 120 pluses. So I was like, oh, great, I'll just get fat and compete against the 120 pluses. So yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I did it. The opening ceremony was brilliant and all that stuff. It was like, it looked like and felt like being at the Olympics. I think it could be way better. And I think Sheffield has really set a different standard. And if we're comparing between competitions, and if you're comparing Sheffield to what a World Games is right now, like Sheffield is a mile in front, more than a mile, maybe 5,000 miles in front. Like, so there's a long way to go to get World Games to where a spectacle like Sheffield was. But I still think we should be thinking about trying to get those things combined and like make that a standard, and make a competition like the World Games, which is supposed to be our Olympics, being at that level that Sheffield was. And I genuinely think that, and I think there's definitely a potential for it. Be it equipped, raw, don't care. Like, I think the standard needs to be like that. But I think the classic brings something that the equipped isn't at the minute. But I also want to pull in some of those nations that aren't quite as big on the classic side. Ukraine, eventually, if that works out, Russia, the nations that used to be huge on the equipped side. But there's definitely something for pulling all this back together. And I've tagged you in a load of memes and wound you up about trying to pull the tribes back together.
Right.
And I've had several conversations with like Dean Bauer and other people that have been around this when this first happened. That if they never invented the bench shirt, would classic have ever existed? Probably not. And if there's all this stuff with the knee sleeves coming around, is it just history repeating itself and we end up back in knee wraps? A bit, maybe. Like, when you look at it from that perspective, and things that have gone on before, you just think maybe there's just a middle ground we could find and just wipe out both and pick something in the middle. And I think from a World Games and Olympics and an IOC standard, if you were looking at this, you go, can't you just find something in the middle that brings all this back together? And I really hope that actually happens, like, because I could see a path through that would bring everybody through with it, and that with the World Games, like, being what's supposed to be like the pinnacle standard and the performance in our sport. It hasn't been probably since 2012 when they did the first Classic World Cup, and then we did the first World Classic in 2013 in Susdale. Everything's split again, and you're like, did we really need to have that division?
Yeah.
And for me, I felt like no, we shouldn't have had that. Like, it'd have been better to think of something else.
It's tough because, well, first off, talking to some people within the IPF, they say exactly what you said in terms, like, certain nations are better at equipped and classic than others, and the reason why you might have both at the same time at the World Games is because the representation globally at the top end will be better spread.
Yeah, it will cover everybody. Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people might not have known that. They might be like, well, why? And that's why. You're going to have some Eastern European nations, et cetera, that are like very strong in terms of government funding, et cetera, because it's in the World Games. Like it's just better. It'll be better represented, at least for now. We'll see how everything progresses. You're right. That's interesting note about the bench shirts. I don't know if we would have a classic even if we never had a bench shirt, because that's what tips people over.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think you're right. I think certain nations like Ukraine, for my weight category, like Ukraine, Chinese Taipei wouldn't exist in the classic, but they're phenomenal in equipment. And I think there's a path through the middle there that could get, both of those two nations involved. I know the Ukraine are in the classic side now, but they're not prolific like they are in the equipped. They're absolutely unbelievable in the equipped. You watch the European equipped this week. It's been Ukraine again. Despite what's going on in the country, like they are phenomenal. But classic side, it's not, is it? It's America.
No,
it's France.
I mean, they
GB.
got Anatoly, but I mean, he's a one-man army basically. It's
he's leading the way.
Right.
I mean, he's probably leading a path, right? And there's probably a whole bunch of them coming through. But it's kind of like watching British powerlifting in the 70s, like well, even in the 80s, there was no one lifting classic at all. Like everything was all equipped, and I think that they've had to go on that journey through Ukraine as well. That we kind of have, but I think we're a little bit ahead of that. I remember going to powerlifting competitions with my dad, and we spoke about this when I was last on. That the one or two guys that were lifting in classic were the weirdos, like the weird guys that didn't put the kit on. Like, why aren't you wearing kit? Why are you just wearing a belt? It's just so weird. Like, what are you doing? Flip that on its head, completely full 360. It's now like these idiots putting their equipment on. What are you doing?
What do you think happens if? Well, first off, in terms of the World Games, is it like athlete compounds? Do you bump into athletes from different sports? What's it like?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah, you go into like the breakfast session, and I remember being in there, and I was eating my breakfast, and someone came in that just won a gold medal in like some random like sport with a frisbee. I can't even remember what it's called, ultimate frisbee or something. Guy came through the door, and all the people were cheering, and
really?
his teammates were there. Yeah, it was amazing. It was brilliant. Like, but you're just amongst teams of people, and whereas like with powerlifting being an individual sport, it's kind of weird because you're like, well, my team aren't here. There's only like 3 of us in the whole thing from the GB from the powerlifting perspective. And when we went to the opening ceremony, we bumped into some people from like archery and I think it was canoeing or something. So there's like 2 of them from there and 2 of them from some other sport. And that was it. That was like our entire team for the opening ceremony, because most of these sports happen in the second week for the GB, like from a GB interest perspective. So there wasn't many of us there. So it's kind of weird. And then you like go to breakfast or whatever, and there's like armies of people in like French kit, like hundreds of them. Like, what are all these people doing it? Oh, because they're all team sports. So you think, well, there's got like 12 people on a team or 5 people on that team, and etc. So it's it was fun to be there and see what was going on. But God, it was hot. That was a hot place to be.
Yeah,
so if you weren't inside, it was horrendous. Like, and we were all waiting outside to go on buses to the venue and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, like, but you know, like powerlifters, like out in like 40-degree heat, like melting. Like, this is not good for us.
Yeah, this is Alabama. This is the southern states. Yeah, exactly. It sounds like, because I've read books about like Olympians and like they're in the athlete compounds, and you mix in with like all these different athletes from all these different sports, and the like opening ceremonies are crazy to watch, and it's like, it just sounds like a really cool experience. And then afterwards, is there like a nightlife? Is everybody partying after they win? And it's
not really.
Really? Wow.
Because I think because of where we were, like you're on like it was like a university halls they were in. So there wasn't a lot of communal stuff going on apart from where the food was. So I think that could be better. I think there should be more of that, or an opportunity to mix like socially with the rest of the teams. And I think there probably would have been if it wasn't so absolutely baking outside. I think if it was a bit more, welcoming to be sat outside and chatting to people, and maybe a few bars knocking around, like you have to walk miles to find anywhere to get a drink. So not ideal. I think where it was probably not ideal. But I think it's great potential, mate, for being what it should be.
Well, let's talk about
for my mind, what it should be is that I'm thinking, Sheffield is what it should have been, and it wasn't anywhere near like that. Like when I was lifting in the hall on the last day, and right, this is the thing about Sheffield, and we'll get into this as well. Is like if you want to get a crowd at a powerlifting competition, I've never been to an IPF World, Europeans, anything where the crowd wasn't the biggest on the last day. And why is it biggest on the last day? Because you've got the supers lifting on the last day, and everyone wants to watch some weight being shifted. That should have been the key focus for me for the selections for Sheffield, and they weren't, right? So Jesus finally getting an invite and doing what he did was absolutely brilliant, and I loved it, and I'm so glad he did it. But how that wasn't a first choice seems bonkers to me. Like him and Ray would have been like, yep, first on my list. Because that's how you get the crowd in, and that's how you get the interest, and that's how you get the spectacle, right? That should have always been first on the list by anyone's standard.
I think it was difficult because it wasn't just like SBD picking whether or not Ray goes. There's like talks on like what's fair, what's not fair, eligibility stuff. There's stuff in the background, so it's always more complicated than surface level. It still might happen because Ray has now, obviously he's the American national champ, so he's not going to be able to go to Worlds. Jesus will take that spot, but he will go to North American Championship. So now he'll have a regional event. So he'll have a national title, a regional event, and likely win. And then maybe because there's going to be another Sheffield. So, and you need them coming back. So instead of all the same with Jesus, maybe Ray's back and hopefully he's healthy. So, we'll see. I agree with you that the big boys shifting weights
They always bring the crowd, like, and everywhere we've ever been, like, I don't know. I couldn't name a venue that I've been to where it's not been for on the last day, always. And been to quite a few internationals now,
right?
And that's always the way, and that would have been where I started on that list. And I'm not saying the 93s weren't exciting, because they really were. I really enjoyed that battle. And Keiko versus Aiden was brilliant. And I think probably I'd have invited Headland as well, if you're going to have all those other 93s there. But maybe that was just me. But we'll see that. We'll see that in Malta, won't we? But well, we can talk about Sheffield, but I don't know if you want to go to Sheffield or not.
We could talk about
staying on World Games, right? So Sheffield, the women's side was they absolutely blew it out of the water for me. And if it wasn't for Jesus, I think the men's side would have been probably a big letdown compared to the women's. Mm-hmm. The women's was phenomenal. The only thing I didn't like about Sheffield watching the women's side was I didn't know what the hell was going on with Evie Corrigan being at like 103% after the first squat, and we were all sat there going, we don't even know what weight category she weighed in at or anything. So we're all like trying to find it on lifting cast. Like, the hell's going on? How is she at the top of the leaderboard? Like, we're all expecting to be a 57. Like, so that was so the score sheet in the venue on the day was just like a names and percentages. So we didn't have a clue what the hell was going on. So we were like, oh, she must have put a 300 kilo deadlift in for a deadlift.
You're like, what do we got here?
What are we watching?
Crunching the numbers as a 57. You're like, that's a massive deadlift.
But that was bonkers. And the world record after world record after world record. It was just nuts. And I was talking to the guys who were dealing with the putting in the attempt selection. They were working on the table after the event. So we met them afterwards, and they were like, yeah, the women's was crazy, but the men's were like, well, where are all the world record attempts? What's going on?
It's tough
like,
because
that's not normal.
Right. It's well, first off, yeah, the women destroyed it. The women did amazing. It was crazy. In the showdowns, like Evie versus Evie versus freaking who's Evie going to Noemi, sorry. And Jad versus Joy. I'm mixing up my 52s, 57, but those clashes were like amazing, super close. And those ladies pushing each other, Joy and Jad over 500, which is awesome for 57s. As well as obviously Evie and Noemi going like 454 and 460 is crazy for 50, like insane for 52s. But on the men's side,
hey, well, hold on. Did you do the fantasy league?
Did I personally?
Yeah. Why didn't you do it? Like, we always have a bet on the World Board, and then you didn't even bother doing this one.
I chickened out, didn't I? I came close to losing King of the Lifts to you. In a previous
so is that why?
I was like, it scared me. It rattled me. I got to settle down with these. But how about yourself? How did you do in that fantasy league?
Yeah, I know, right. I came 25th out of 200 and...
No, that's good.
228. That wasn't too bad. Given there were some surprises in there, right? Who had Evie? I mean, I didn't. Well, probably everyone in New Zealand.
Apparently, some people were like on the preview show, it caught me off guard. But when Tori was like, I think Evie's cutting to 52. And I was like, really? She goes, look how lean and jacked she is. And her numbers gone down, but not crazy. But they gone down, but she seems happy with it. But she's like, well, that was a good squat. But the number wasn't particularly good for a 57. She looks diced. She's like, I'm just adding this all together. And I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, that was a little surprising. But that's what you can do because it's not weight classes.
No, yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, that was a side swipe for everybody, I think.
The thing with the men's is we had a lot of injuries. Like Emil Norling in the 105s pulled his hammy like a hammy tear in squats. So then after that, even his deadlift, like he ended up winning the battle of the 105s, but his deadlift wasn't, usually he hits his last dead usually, and he just wasn't there. I mean, in the Swedish Nationals, he had totaled 928.5 and the world record's 937.5. So it would stand to reason it's within reach anyways, load something up. Taylor obviously injured, and we had a couple people who showed up banged up, unfortunately, but
yeah. No, I think Taylor will win worlds. I might just look at it and go, yeah, it's Taylor. He'll find a way.
He'll find a way. He'll return.
Yeah. And I know there's been a lot of talk of other people in that weight category, but yeah, I don't think they're there yet. And maybe they've got time, but in that time, probably he gets healthy and he's back. And he's a character, isn't he? I mean, he's a bit like Russ for me. I think people are going to love him or hate him. And I sit and go, God, he's just a good lifter. And he's a strong dude.
What do you think in terms of 100% people either love him or same with Russ? It's this, they're polarizing. A, because they're so dominant, and B, because they'll let you know. So, and this is different. This is American bravado, and it's different than a lot of European.
Brits don't like, they just see a cocky dude. And if they continue to win and they continue to be cocky, you kind of just go, oh, yeah, it's just American. But honestly, does it need to come with that cocky edge? For me, no, I don't think it does. But if that's just who they are, then that's just who they are, right? As long as that's not being false in how they're being, I'm all right with them being however they need to be, to stay confident and perform the way that they'd like to perform. That wouldn't work for me, because I'd be performing, it's but if you're gonna continue to do well and win and break world records and do what they're continuing to do, you need to come and wipe the smile off their face if you've got a problem with it. So
it's true.
Just turn up and win then. They say, that's what you got to do.
Right.
That ends that story. I mean, that's the only way. That's the only way through it. So That's what I would say to the people that are looking in, especially those that are in that weight category, and especially those that are juniors in that weight category and are nowhere near those numbers, telling everyone how they're going to do this and do that, because that happens a lot right at the minute. I'm not sure why. It doesn't happen with us fat people. You don't hear it in the 120s and the 120 pluses.
That's true.
Like the juniors talking it up about what they're going to do. I don't know why that happens in the low weight categories. Why that happens in the 74s and the 83s and the the snipiness and the you don't get that with the fat boys. Why is that?
I don't know, man. You're just small. If you're smaller, maybe you're overcompensating.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
And the big boys are like, all right, settle down.
Or
maybe
I told Jorins it was a Yorkshire Terrier the other day, so maybe that's part of it, right?
Until, like, who knows? Maybe you get one of the big boys shows up and he changes the game and he starts talking like an 83. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But he's going to have to be like Muhammad Ali in his performance, isn't he, to live up to
it? Right. Jesus probably could if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this whole, like, in the US, we're seeing like camps versus camps. We're like,
oh yeah,
the getting drama. Too much drama.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, it's a bit. It almost feels like it's put on, like it's a false drama and a false narrative to make a story, like, and if it feels like that, it's not going to engage people. So it's got to feel natural and it has to feel real. And if there's a real rivalry, man, that bites a lot better, right? Like when there's a real rivalry in boxing, like about it, right? Because it's vicious, like. Whereas this doesn't feel very vicious. This just feels like, you said my dad's stronger than your dad. It's just like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it. Okay, so some of, for sure, people are. It can be a little contrived on some for some of these, but some of them, I think are starting to heat up to becoming real.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of them I think are. There's also, what do you think about? And this is new. Like, you've been around since. Again, the early 2000s to 2010 to 2020, now 2023, like, you've seen it all. And now we're developing personalities that are online that are clearly almost like, are you actually like that in real life, or are you like that online? Like, they're an online personality and they have cultivated it. And I don't know, we see this in other sports and other,
Do we see it to the extent that we do, though? Like, social media is massive for powerlifting, right? Because it's got us to where it's got us, and I don't regret us getting involved in that, and Instagram blowing up with powerlifting stuff. I think that's great. I think it's been good for the sport. I think we'd never see that kind of rivalry and noise. Again, and I'll come back to it, but the Ukraine people, you don't really get many of them on social media. You're not going to get a personality out of them over social media because of language barriers and various other things. So is it just like a Western thing where we just, it's just over the pond, and maybe that's our side of things. And if that wasn't there, would we? Like I say, if it wasn't classic versus equipped and we brought them both together, would we get like the Rocky Russia versus America? Would that ever happen in our world because of like social media is like the forum that we go on, and like the Russians would never be on it, the Ukrainians would never be on it? Would we ever get that, like, be able to get it out there and express it? They'd have to come on here and like argue with each other over so we almost had it right, Blaine and Konovalov, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know about their like they're arguing, and they had like
it got vicious, man.
Yeah, it got like a bit of tit for tat between them, and it was quite nice. Like, there is a bit of rivalry there, and maybe that is real. That felt quite real, and yeah, maybe that feels more real than some of the stuff I've seen on the classic side, because I think that stuff, like between Blaine and Crover, was like genuine, right? I felt like they really didn't like each other. I'm not really sure why or what happened, or like what the story is behind that. I don't know if you'd heard about it, but there was definitely some niggle right?
They I had them both on the podcast. This is a few years back now, so I don't want to misquote, but I remember I think Kovalov had done an interview in Russian and he had some choice words. And then Blaine found out, and Blaine like took snippets of it and literally had it on his wall and was like watching it because Kovalov had beaten him a few times, and then Blaine got a win on over him. And then like on Father's Day, he was like, I just want to say, thank you to my son and something like that. It was along the lines. I might be paraphrasing, misquoting, but there was some social media back and forth with it. And it got, those fellas got heated. The thing is, there's a language barrier, but obviously you can Google Translate and get people to tell you, like, did you know what he said? And then on the flip side, though, I don't know. They're on opposite ends of the world, and you're never going to bump into it. You're never going to work things out. Even you couldn't. No. It'd be difficult to even work it out if you wanted to. So things can linger as well with a language barrier in between.
Yeah. They never settled it at a championship, so they didn't go to Worlds and go, okay, you win, and that's the end of it. Like, it just carried on, carried on to the next Worlds. That. I kind of like that. I kind of like that niggle. That's good. Like, that's good for the story. I've never had any. No, never. No. Like, never had like a battle like with having a problem with anybody. Like, look at the people that I've been competing against, like Dennis. Like, it's the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Really difficult to fall out with Dennis. I mean, he was so far ahead of me anyway. It wouldn't have made no difference. Rondell, like, he's a really nice guy. Like, I've messaged him and said, bad luck with that pool, and like, he's unbelievably strong, and I hope he comes back to the IPF at some point. Hopefully not before I manage to beat Dennis's record, because I don't want him to make it 10:40 or something.
yeah, fair.
But they that's what I mean. Like, we just don't have that kind of niggle in this weight category, or we haven't had a personality that's come along and has just been horrible. Like, they've always been just genuinely nice people that have, the enemy is the bar, and like even with Ukrainians, where it's a difficult language barrier and things. I've had various conversations with Bitchkov online about training and what he's up to at the minute, and his family are safe, obviously, and asking obvious questions, but also just saying, he came to me and said, we're not enemies, the bar's the enemy. So like, you're not competing against each other, you're competing against the weight, and that's how he's always viewed it, and I think there is a lot to be said for that. Although that makes it kind of boring, right?
Well,
so you do think, it's nice, but it's not going to get a hyped up, amped up story for like a head-to-head, a championship. Like, I'm waiting for Delaney Jurins, like, just kill each other, like that's, I guess that's come in, but it only comes in those weight categories. It doesn't come in ours. But I'm not really sure why. It'd be nice if there was a bit more niggle, I guess, in every weight category. But sometimes you don't need the backstory. You just want to watch the lifting and watch people do well. And I always wish my rivals to do really, really well. I want them to beat their PRs and do all this, but I also want to beat my own. So I happen to beat you as well. That's the nature of like strongman training. You had
Mitch Hooper.
World's Strongest Man on, saying exactly the same thing. All these guys are super nice, like they're really nice guys. There's no one coming in there and they're going, I wish you to fail. No, they want everyone to succeed because they know that success is a success for the sport. And I feel like that's how we've always felt about powerlifting. That the success for the person who's your rival is a success for you and what you're trying to achieve in the sport, and the rising tide. And we felt it in the UK. Like, I've never ever been to a stronger squad session than I was at yesterday. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, going to that and going, this is easily the strongest team I think I've ever been a part of from a GB squad perspective. But it's just a matter of time because the tide is pulling all of us along with it. Right, because if I don't try and keep up with that and get better, then I get left behind. So then everyone feels the same way, and we all have to up our game, and we've got to do the next thing, and we've got to do the next thing. The French team come from nowhere to kind of
it's insane.
Like, right up here. They came, with the men's team at the 2019 Worlds when I won. Do you know where they placed? The French team? 22nd.
Holy smokes, man. Are you kidding me?
No,
That's 2019.
I looked it up last night because I was like, where did the French team come when I won last? I was going when I looked through it. 22nd. Where would they come? Like second last year?
Yeah, and the women's have won before. Like they didn't win last year because Leah.
So I came on here to take the piss out of you for being the supporter of the French team, saying you're a glory supporter and all this. You're like 1990s Man United super fan, but I went and looked at it and went, oh well, that's why.
Well, I mean, it's incredible how quickly they've like turned themselves into a powerlifting nation.
Yeah,
like it's really I watch from an interested perspective because, like, if you could do it there, can you replicate that in other nations? And why? How is this happening? I've had people say, like, well, they get funding from the government, but they always had funding from the government. That didn't. What changed, though? Because there was always government funding. It was like there's, obviously certain people come at the right time. I give a lot of credit to Penna.
What did Penna say about that? Did you ask him that?
So essentially, previously, the old guard was very much like stayed within France of all things. They didn't even speak English. So first off, there was no taking in any content, period, whether it be training or curriculum we'd be passing around, or you could get a coach from America, Britain, whatever, and we could all train together, all different like videos, etc. So in terms of the quality of lifters, they weren't rapidly improving because they were like stuck in a vacuum in terms of their knowledge. And then in terms of popularity, because they couldn't take in content like big names, like for instance, like Jesus, Russ, or anybody that they can't watch your videos and content because a lot of them didn't speak English as well. So then what happened was eventually Penna, Coco, a few of the younger guys came up and started taking online courses by Mike T because they could speak English. And they actually leaned into English speaking purely to learn powerlifting more, saying something's got to give. And then through like Penna came, like obviously Leah, Noemi, Turbo Tiff, Noemi's moved on, Leah's moved on, but still came up through him first initially. So the initial wave was Penna, Turbo Tiff, Leah, Noemi, even Samantha Eugenie lived with Penna for like a summer a few years ago. Like there was so much, like Penna and his girlfriend, there was so much, I don't want to put everything like it's only Penna, but sometimes it takes one person to be like, something's got to give. And then on top of that, he started doing collaborations with social media people like who are big in France. So then it helps popularize it. And then once you start getting some stars, and then some of them speak English so that they could cross over onto podcasts, global podcasts. And then all of a sudden, the wave. The language barrier is a big deal. It's difficult but it's also a barrier.
Do you know what I heard through all of that was Mike Tashir was the problem.
Mike Tashir was those online classes. Yeah, well, Mike Tashir. Yeah, exactly, dude. You created a monster over there. Like a lot of their training is based off of that, apparently. Like Coco was taking those classes as well. And the language barrier not only stopped them initially from growing, but also is a barrier now. If you want to infiltrate France and try to take that market, it's difficult to take the market away as well. Like they got a grip on it, essentially. Like if you're in France and you're looking for a coach, we're a global market these days.
Yeah.
Some of them speak English enough to get like coaching from Britain, America, whatever. But a lot of them are going to stay within because you want back and forth, and part of that relationship is back and forth and communication. And if you don't speak good English, so there is also the barrier works for them and against them, and they've worked with it now. They learn to work with it, dude. It's crazy. It's so interesting in sports when you see like one nation just quote unquote turn on in real time and just watch it happen. It's very, it's like, wow, didn't see that coming. It's good. Yeah. It's great for the sport. I hope it happens in different nations, and like we could use that in like Asia. We need an Asian nation to blow up. Freaking South American, like just a few more pockets, and it's possible.
Yeah. You can feel it coming though. Like it's just a matter of time, isn't it? It only takes, like Pano was like one spark, right?
Right.
So we just got to find them in those various pockets. But in the UK, I think I think I think we're coming to a crescendo. I think Malta is going to be massive for this GB team. From what I've seen, from what I saw yesterday, and what I've seen in people's training and things, and I know it's because Malta is the biggest, probably it's the biggest worlds, certainly the biggest classic worlds has ever been. I'm not sure if it's the biggest worlds it's ever been. It may well be. That all of the nations are bringing their strongest teams, but we are bringing a strong team. I've never been in a 120s GB nationals with that kind of competition ever. And if that is happening across every weight class, where are we going to end up? I don't know. It's mental. Genuinely exciting. Genuinely really exciting for classic, but genuinely exciting for all of it. So worrying about whether or not we're going to have enough equipped lifters. I go, well, they're not all getting on the classic team, mate. So they're going to have to do something. So it's
get in
opportunity knocks. Yeah, you've got to do what you've got to do. If you want some experience, you want to get on an international platform, go and put a suit on, because if you're at this level in the classic, you probably get on the team. So go and give it a go, and then come back if that's how you feel. And I think that's probably where we'll land on this in the development of both sides, unless we find a different path, which maybe it's in the middle somewhere. But I think that might take some time.
When you were listening to the Penn episode, you had messaged me saying we were talking about how also, like, not Penn just didn't do that, but him, his fiance, and all of them are super into the federation giving back. So another thing that happens in France while they're expanding, all of them, like from Penna to Turbo Tiff to Leah to Jad Jacob to Coco to all of them, are like refs.
They're all referees. They're all supporting. They're in their divisions. They're doing what they need to do.
Within the federation. Yeah. Crazy. Yep. Meet directors. They're holding competitions. They're seeking sponsors for the competition, so that to give out money to lifters, not themselves. And like if Penna wins, he gives a check to the next guy. Like it's crazy what they're like. That's what they're so committed in France. And then you heard that episode, and we're like, you said UK, like, the Great British team is very similar. It's that attitude.
Yeah, there's for us, there's very, very little government involvement from a monetary perspective. We only got recognition as a sport last year or the year before.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Maybe last year or the year before. Yeah, because we've broken away from Baller, so we used to be unified with weightlifting. This is years back, and then the federation broke away, and various other things happened. Baller still had the recognition as being like the governing body for weightlifting and powerlifting, because they still had the powerlifting for Paralympic powerlifting, which they still have, So and then us trying to get recognition from a powerlifting perspective, say, we're a real sport and we compete and we're international and we're doing all these things, and it's taken years to get. And we got that a couple of years ago. So there's basically no money from the government at all in British powerlifting. So everything that is given to athletes, referees, coaches, anything is all from within the federation itself. And then, the development of the sport and the development of the divisions and everything else within the sport is very much down to those individual members. There's very little money, so everyone's having to put in their own time. Most of those international lifters that you're seeing are, they're referees, they're coaches, they're involved in the sport in another way. I'm on the board of British Powerlifting as a chair of the Athletes Commission, just to give something back to the sport. I mean, prior to that, I was just spotting and loading at competitions to try and just do something like helpful. Like I didn't have enough time for like organising championships and things like that. But most of the international lifters that you see from a GB team perspective, that's what they do. They're either running like a division of the federation in the UK, or they're putting on a championship, or they're doing what I was doing, spotting and loading and helping the best way they can. That's what's helped the sport develop. And because we've had such a big influx of members, like putting on a championship and being able to cope with the amount of people that we've got and the amount of lifters we've got, requires everything is voluntary. Like, so the people that are going to run the comp, people that are going to run the table, people that are going to referee, people that are going to, actually just help out at the championships, all ends up coming from within that 5,000 members or so, or whatever we've got in British powerlifting. So, without that, sport dies, and it's great to see that happening in France, and that Pano and the guys have had to take the lead in that to create that momentum. But that French team existed before Pana. You got Sofiane competed today. I don't know how he did because I was trying to check it on my phone and I've not actually seen it. But Sofiane is the under 120 equipped powerlifter in France, and Hassan El Belgheti, another.
He's an OG.
OG French lifter. He probably won this week. I've not checked, but he probably did. These two guys, and I'll call those two guys friends. That prior to, and I don't know the connection between their classic and their equipped team in France, and that might be an interesting question to ask as to if there is any connection between them, or if they're completely separate and run as like two separate teams. But yeah, that dynamic's interesting, and in the UK, like the equipped team and the raw team are very separate.
Is that
not sure why it needs to be that way? Like, you're all powerlifters. I think we can gain something from both sides, and again, I want to unite the clans. Like, and I'm gonna keep saying it because I think there's a way forward for everyone to work together on one feat to team the other.
That could be. I mean,
that might be the spark that pulls it all back together, right? And gets everyone back talking together, and one team feeding the other. I'd like to do one squad session with the GB team that is both teams together, and one team can see what the other team has to do, and one team can see what the other team has to do, why, and what the differences are, and get inspired to cross paths.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is definitely a way forward there. It's very early days of me thinking about these things, but I think it's important that we get communication across two teams if we're going to develop equipped, or if we want to still be competitive on that side. We've got to have a path for classic lifters to give it a go if they want to try it.
What do you think happens in the next 5 years with equip? Like, do you think I don't think it's going to die out. Do you think it'll just remain at a certain size?
I genuinely don't know. Like, it has to do something. If it's going to survive, it's got to do something different. And I think now's the time that we need to find the thing that it does different. This World Games activity and the decision that is made around the World Games might be a huge factor in that. And I think if it switched completely to classic, perhaps that is equipped dead, right? If it doesn't, and there is a path forward, then maybe there's a methodology that we can bring both together, and we go, we're going to both be at the same championships now. Can we start to work as one team rather than two teams? And then one might feed the other, and then you get some sort of real symbiotic relationship there and success between the teams. But I can't imagine that classic French team has a lot to do with the classic equipped team. Might be wrong, but I don't imagine they're going to squad sessions together and talking to each other. Perhaps they should be, right? I mean, that there would be some real value in those inexperienced French classic juniors coming through, getting to speak to someone like Hassan about international competition, how to perform, how to stay cool under pressure, and his experience that he could lend to that team would be, astronomically good. So there'd be some real value in that for them. Maybe that's where the path needs to lead.
Talking about the giving back with people like what you're seeing in Great Britain, what you're seeing in France, etc. I have a story. So in Canada, one of the provincial championships had a rule in place that if you weren't going to compete for whatever reason you had to, or actually it was somewhere along the lines of you had to do one voluntary spotting loading and help out a competition somewhere. And there was a provincial championship, I believe it was a provincial. and this is going back a few years,
Mm-hmm.
but a bunch of people had signed up, and then to like spot and load and help out, whatever. And then somewhere along the lines, that rule was changed in AGM. And then the championship rolled around, and all like a slew of those people just didn't bother showing up. And they just were like, well, if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And the meet director was literally like, calling in French, just like you're stuck. You're like, guys, what are we gonna do now? Like, is it too much for you? Literally, you would only show up if you had to. You're like, this was crazy. Everything you want to take from the sport, you couldn't give a weekend, maybe even just a day. Was your spotting and loading a day? Just show up a day. Like I remember, and this wasn't everybody. Like, I mean, not to paint a picture like this is all Canada, because I've spotted and loaded, and I remember Kelly Branton, you probably remember him, and him showing up spotting and loading when he was like the poster boy for Canada. And I was like, you're spotting and loading today too? He's like, it's that time of the year. Like he's always tries at least once a year to do at least once some spotting and loading, which is grunt work, but whatever. If you don't do it, we're in trouble here. Like we're not going to move forward unless you want to get in the hot seat and ref. And that's freaking, not only do you have to do testing and all these courses and whatnot to become a ref, but from here on out, you're making calls and people are going to do their recaps. And you know how people do their recaps and blast about, I thought that squat was deep enough. I don't, it is what it is. It's the way it works. But at least when some of these refs, when some of these athletes become refs, like Penna himself, he obviously bombed out of Euros. And he's like, look, I said
everyone gets a white light.
Right. Wow. But he was like, at the very least, when he bombed, when you are a ref, it changes your perspective how quickly you are to jump onto your post and say something about what you thought your
I heard that conversation that you had with him. Yeah.
Right. Well, we talked also, but
just calm down.
Right. Yeah. Give yourself 48 hours. But I do think though, when you become a part of spotting, loading, reffing, and all the rest of it, you have a newfound appreciation for those roles.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you respect it.
I think what we've seen is, though, if you leave it to people to be voluntary, it tends to be the same people that are there at every frigging championship, and nobody else makes the effort. Whereas I think, like you said, if you made it mandatory, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Like if you make it mandatory, then it's not volunteering anymore, is it? It's part of what you've got to do to be a member. And I'm hesitant to say that's a positive thing either.
Because you don't want to push people away.
No, exactly. You don't want to say, oh, you can't go to a national championship if you've not volunteered at a divisional, and then suddenly you can't get a place as a volunteer at a divisional competition because they're all full with the rest of the team that are trying to volunteer as to hit their place. So it becomes like a counterproductive exercise of people trying to give up time where they don't really have the time to give up just to make sure that they volunteered for a championship. What we really want is for all the competitions to be well run and well equipped with volunteers from the Fed. And if we can get to that without it being the same people doing everything over and over again, which is why that Northwest has a volunteer schedule. So you can go onto the schedule and you can pick on a Sunday afternoon, I will do that session. On a Saturday morning, I'll do that session, and I will be side spotter on that particular platform. It's a very detailed, specific online registration as part of as if you were going to register to compete, you go and register as a volunteer. Right. But if you don't turn up, somebody has to fill that. Right. So if you're going to put your name down and you're going to commit to it, you need to be there. You need to be there at that time. You need to be available, and you need to know what the hell you're doing. There's no point in having 5 people volunteer to come and, load and spot on a platform. They haven't got a frigging clue what they're doing, and there's dangerous to the lifter. That's crazy as well. So we've got to make sure we've covered all the bases. But making it mandatory, I think, might be counterproductive for those reasons, that you'd get too much competition for being voluntary in your own division, and then you've got to go and drive 5 hours away to go and volunteer at somebody else's division, and then suddenly you've had to give up 2 days of your time to just cover that tick on your box in terms of, oh, do I qualify for this national championship or this international? I think there's something to be said for most powerlifters, and like people that I meet in powerlifting wouldn't hesitate to volunteer for the divisional. Like people on the international teams that I've met, like very few of them are like, and so pig-headed, arrogant, arsehole type characters that they wouldn't be willing to put in at the base level, because they know they were relying on people when they came up through powerlifting that did all of that, and they did it for free. So I think most of them will. We can encourage it, and you can ask, but making it mandatory might be counterproductive in my view. But
also, you might get people whom you might not want doing this. Like it's usually, because it's not easy. Like in terms of spotting and loading, you have a platform manager, and that person definitely needs to be experienced. But if you misload, and it's freaking, they're moving so quickly. Like, here's the thing. Here's another thing. Because of social media and everything, if you make a mistake, if you grab the bar too quickly, or if you and you take someone's squat away from them, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Or if you misload and it's your fault, it's a nightmare. Or just like even getting the collar on and off, but in time, because you're moving so quickly. I've done the spotting and loading, and I got like a little anxiety, because I'm like, everyone's watching, it's online, it's going to last forever, and nobody knows all the good things you're doing. Like, no one pays attention. If you're doing, it's one of those deals where if you're doing a good job, nobody notices. But if you do one mistake, everybody notices. So you get no thank you for doing an amazing job all day, where you're quick, but you fuck up, everybody's reposting, like, did you see what happened here? Or if you drop a ball and you're like Tony Cliffe, or six-pack Lapadat, did you see him take away that kid's squat? Now it's like, oh, they'll be all over you. It's like, it gets worse and worse. So it's like, damn. It's.
I feel this. I feel the same way for refereeing. I mean, it's why I've never been a referee. I feel like maybe that's not something I'm interested in doing, because I think that exact same backlash can happen, and it is a proper thankless task, isn't it? Being a referee, doesn't matter what they do. They there's going to be at least 1 or 2 calls in a day that either you got wrong or somebody has a problem with, and it's horrible. I don't know why anyone would volunteer to be a referee. I have no idea. It must be mad.
It's tough, man.
Like, who are these people that choose to do this? So it's just like, you wouldn't get me doing it. No way. I'll be a coach. That's fine. Yeah, blame the referees. Don't blame me.
Do you do coaching at the international level, like handling?
No. I've done a bit national and divisional, and then that's about it. Like, and I don't coach. I did a bit of programming and stuff, but I just haven't got time. Like, I get asked all the time, "Oh, you do my programming for me?" I'm like, yeah. If you want me to visit it once every 6 months, that's absolutely fine. If you actually want some coaching. Yeah. You're backing up the wrong tree.
Here's a 4-week block, do it for 6 months and come back to me.
Yeah, just keep repeating it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, just do a little bit heavier the next month. What about because coaching, I think, like, do you feel, what do you think in the next 5 years for yourself? Seeing how you're 39 now, do you want to go into the Masters? Because you're obviously peaking now 39, so you don't really have to. But if you started, let's say you're like in the late 40s, are you a guy who, I go into the Masters? Are you a guy who, if I don't make the open team, or do you just stay in the open regardless and just keep pushing?
Yeah, I'm not really interested in Masters and lifting. My dad did it, and I think fair enough. If you started later in the sport and that's something that you're interested in, and I'd rather be a Dave Ricks and a Tony Harris type, and if you want to smash a world record in the open, you still can go and do that instead. Like, that's where I'd rather be. Coaching wise, I think I could probably get into certain, in terms of your game day coaching, Yeah, I can't see myself competing in the Masters, but doesn't mean I won't keep trying to make the Open team. But I just think, it's going to get to a point where that standard is just going to, if it's going to propel the way I see it going with like the Rundell's standard, and like 1,000 kilo total and the under 120 is going to become normal, like, which is what I can see coming. I'm not going to be competing with that. So eventually, I think I'll have to reside to the sideline and coaching the rest of the team. But I'm good with that.
Like you would. What if you're like 55 and you're like, I want to compete, but you're obviously, you could show up at the Open and just place like freaking way low, or or do you think even just for fun, or like the Masters just for fun, or can you just look at, are you the type of guy who's like, no, if I'm 55, I can weight train, but I won't compete?
Yeah, I think that's where I'll land. I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind, but the way I'm feeling about it right now, and the way it's hard, isn't it? Because the way I feel about it right now is I'm like top of the Open and I'm 39. And
yeah, you're peaking. You're at your
Masters,
prime right now.
Masters is like next year, and I'm like, well, I haven't peaked yet, so what am I worried about? Like, yeah. But then I look a bit further past that, and I think that doesn't last forever, does it? And eventually, I'm going to go in the gym and I'm going to train and I'm going to do my hardest training I can possibly do, and the numbers are still going to keep going backwards. Then you go, am I going to have the fun in that type of training? It's not really the competing, right? Because the thing that gets me from one competition to another is not thinking about the competition and the success. It's the day-to-day improvement and the way I feel about that training session and what happened that day. It's not what's going to happen in 6 months' time when I'm competing at a World Championships. That's just a consequence of going through that path. And if I'm going through that path and that path is horrific or going backwards, is it going to feel as appealing to just carry on and do the training? Maybe not. I don't know. Because I've not been there yet. Whereas I go and train now and I'll have a couple of crappy sessions. I go, oh, I got this wrong, or I did something incorrect, I need to fix it. Whereas I go through that and I feel like I'm going to go, I didn't do anything wrong and they haven't got anything to correct. I'm just getting old. Is that going to feel non-recoverable for the next session? And I think from the way I feel like when I'm training and go, it's a really good session, I really enjoyed it, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Am I going to feel like that day to day when it doesn't feel like that? Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think that's going to be a very pleasurable experience for me in terms of training.
It is what it is. Here's the thing, though. What is the alternative? You stop weightlifting?
Stop now
altogether. You got to train. Yeah. You got to shift.
Even more so, more important, right? I mean, I listened to Kendrick the other day and went, shit, I get to 6 now, I'm gonna have to still lift.
You got to fight the good fight. Like you're gonna shrivel up.
Keep some muscle. What's going on?
Right. You gotta fight the good fight. Stay as strong as you can, as long as you can, as muscular as you can, and just maintain that. Now you don't have to maybe push it to the extent that powerlifting training, but if you're not competing, if you decide, okay, I'm not going to compete anymore, but to not lift, there's something about shifting some freaking weight, getting after it, getting tired, getting sore. Even if the weights aren't what they used to be, you can't just lay down. You know what I mean? Life goes on. You don't want to be 50 years old.
But I've got other sports I could go and I could go and get to. Maybe I could go back to judo and roll around with some young kids and make them squeal.
Right.
That might be quite more enjoyable than getting battered by the bar.
Well, okay. Well, you could do a little weightlifting will help judo. That's for sure. You would be a serious problem to try to grapple with. That would suck for somebody. I want to ask you about judo. Obviously I love the martial arts. So how did you get into judo?
Oh, my mate did it. I was 9 years old and my friend from across the road started going to judo, and I nagged at my mum for a year before she'd let me go. And then when I did go, she made me go on a session with a bunch of 4 or 5 year olds. For my first session, I was jumping around on a mat with a lot of kids, really little kids. I was like, why am I here? we progressed together. It was a judo club that Harry Slater ran called Glanford Kodokan in Scunthorpe that no longer exists, sadly. But we all went from being like that, like 9, 10 years old, to being like about 15, 16 years old and competing at a national level with that same club. So we all sort of developed together, which is amazing. It feels like a lifetime ago. But Harry and Janet, who sadly died a few years ago, they were fantastic coaches. And Jamie Slater, who was Harry's son, was our sort of our main coach, and there was another coach called Simon, and just like a fantastic bunch of people, and like a really great group of people to train with as well. And they were all focused on the same thing. We're trying to get to a national championship, so we're trying to get to like through our what we call like a divisional championship, win that, and then qualify for a national championship. And I'll go there, and every year we'd go down like on a minibus together, and we'd go down to Crystal Palace in London and compete at this national championships. There's a amazing experience for being that young, so it's really helped, like going away and competing nationally and internationally in powerlifting. So nothing compared to what we had to go through for that, like, and then qualifying from that to go and be part of the GB team in judo, and then going away and fighting internationally for GB when I was like, I don't know, I was like 13, 14.
Really? You were on international teams?
Yeah. I mean, that was terrible, but I mean, I managed to get somehow I managed to get on a team. But like, I used to get, I think the best I did was like a bronze medal at a Dutch national, international. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just strong, like as So technically, I wasn't like the best judoka, but I was willing, and I'd have fought hard, and often at that age, that's probably enough. Yes, as long as you're willing to scrap, that's what I did quite well, and I think that's how I managed to get where I did. Really, was just to scrapping.
It's so much easier, like, to shift weights. You have your allotted time on the platform for you to wrap your mind around when you shifted from judo to powerlifting, like in terms of like intimidation or anything like that. Like judo, you literally look across the mats and there's somebody else staring back at you. And at a certain level, you're going to end up being a black belt, and he's a black belt staring back at you. And you're like, well, and you're from the UK, and some dude speaking Polish or German. If it's like the Dutch Open, it's an international. And you're like, damn, that's going to be intimidating. That's a different level of intimidation and performance anxiety. You have a bad day is one thing, but you could literally get mollywopped. Right?
Yeah. And so you go out there and you get hammered, and then like your mum and dad aren't there to console you. Like you're there with your mates from the team, and they're taking a piss out of you for getting battered. Like that's it. That was the deal. But that was kind of liberating, I guess. Didn't realize at the time. It just felt kind of humiliating, I guess. But it's nerve-wracking and scary, and like. But then I say that, and then I went to my first European powerlifting championships, and I threw up before I competed because I was so nervous. Yeah, like I get, you can't get over that feeling of just being worried about your own performance. And I don't know, like I wasn't like trying to make weight. I wasn't like worrying about this or that or the other, but like just the anxiety of the whole being away and competing somewhere you'd never been before. And I think the worst thing is when we used to go out as a team, you go out like from day one of the championship, and because I was like with the fatties, right, you'd be there for like 5 days watching everybody else compete before you did a bloody thing, and you're like, it's my turn soon. Well, it's my turn soon, and you're consoling your teammates, or you're celebrating with them. Oh, well done, everyone. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's me tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like
that's like that, and it just gets worse and worse and worse as it builds up. And so, like later now, like I won't fly out to Malta until Thursday, and I'll compete on Saturday night, right? So I'll be there on Friday. And that'll be it, and then I'll compete on Saturday night. Like you don't want to be around everyone else who's had all that pressure, and then they're through all that pressure, and they're fine, and they're enjoying themselves, and now they're effectively on holiday, and you're sat there going, oh, Christ, I don't compete for another 2 days. It's horrible. Like, it is a horrible experience, and that takes a bit of getting used to, I think, when you've been away on the teams and stuff. Whereas like the judo thing didn't really prepare me for that, because everyone competed on the same day. Like so you turn up to the championship, everyone be really nervous the night before. You go in, weigh in, and you compete, and then you come home like 2 days later, and that was it. Whereas with a a powerlifting championship, it can take a week. You don't want to be there a week waiting to compete.
do you still feel that 20 years later though? Does it never really go away?
No, it does. Yeah, it's not as pressured at all. Especially after winning, winning Europeans and winning Worlds, and that, like, take it in your stride. I mean, I turned up to the last Worlds, and you turned up, and I was there having a beer, right? Like,
that's right. I remember seeing you.
What are you doing? I was like, I just enjoyed myself. Like, well, we missed it for a couple of years.
This is true. You might as well enjoy the moment. I mean, and you're a big dude. A couple beers isn't going to do anything to you. So
no damage.
Right, no damage. But is it when you're at the Worlds though, because you're representing your nation and Germans, I didn't drop the podcast yet, but the way people talk about you, like I remember, we'll play the name game here too, but I did the name game and I put Tony Cliffe, and he said something about like he's the daddy of the GB team. He's the patriarch. Like he didn't use that term, but he's describing you like that because you are. Here's what happens. I read a lot of MMA autobiographies, and Randy Couture was a guy who was fighting in MMA, and he was in his 40s. And guys who were on, like, in the team, in the room, training with, etc., when he goes to competitions, would be in their 20s. And whether you want it or not, like it or not, whatever, when you've been around forever, you've been around from yesterday, you're the bridge to other eras. You're an older guy. You start becoming a patriarchal, like people look to you in terms of advice, in terms of how you handle yourself, in terms of, and then when you show up, Team GB, just like Randy Couture, when he'd show up and guys are with him, they felt a little bigger because they got like Big Brother with them. And it becomes like, and you don't ask for this role, you just stick around long enough and you just start it just happens. You're like, I was the other guy before. And do you feel that happening? Do you feel that? And then when you show up at Worlds, is there some of that going on in it, or how do you feel about it?
No, yes, I think simply, but I also recognised it from when I first joined the team. Like, so when I first joined the team, Dean Barron, who's now the head coach of the equipped team, was that patriarchal figure on the team. He was the only one who'd won a world championship that's still on the team. Like, he was the guy. So everyone was looking up to him. So you've got to be conscious about the way you're behaving within that team. I mean, making sure you're doing everything that you'd expect the rest of the team to be doing. Twassing about. You're supposed to be training, like, not doing anything stupid, and making sure you're setting the right example. I think is, but I think we've had children. You want to do that anyway, right? Like you want to be there to set that example. You're not going to do anything differently in terms of how you compete and how you perform, but you've got to be open to people coming to you and asking for advice as well. And I think that's important. Even if your advice is terrible, like, make it sound like you know what you're talking about.
Or even a lot of it is straight up, honestly, a lot of it is just listening, being available. Like when I saw you, I've seen you chilling in the lobby when you were having a beer. When I ran into you, you were just chilling in the lobby, reading a book, having a beer. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down and talk to Tony Cliffe. But when you're just around, whatever. If a younger guy's on the team and he's like a little nervous, and you know what it's like with international.
Come and sit down and have a chat.
Yeah.
Be that person that they can come and talk to. And I, try and be like Dean was for me on that team, which was exactly that. Like, he wasn't telling me what to do and how to warm up and what to wear, and he wasn't doing any of that. He was just being a good person and being somebody you could just go and have a chat with, play cards with, and try and relax. Like, when it's difficult to relax when you're in that environment, it's you've been that pressure cooker, right? So you know what it's like. Like, you've got to be stoic as you can be, and and I think some people really struggle to be stoic, where they get really overexcited and overstimulated from day one of being there, and that's why by the time you come to compete, you're completely flat, right? Because you've allowed yourself to get all hyped. And I remember Aaron telling me this at the very first championship I ever went to, was like, don't go and watch any of it. right? You can be here and celebrate with people in the hotel, but please don't even bother. Like, it's certainly not the day before you're going to compete. Don't go down there and watch it, because if you're like me and you're watching it and you're getting involved, your energy's up and down and you're getting all excited, and it's even worse because you're thinking about like what you're going to feel like tomorrow. So giving that kind of advice, just to get people to just chill, relax, don't think about it too much. Right. It's just another day in the gym. All you're going to do is lift some weights. Like, you've got 9 minutes. That's it. It's not a big deal, right? It's 9 minutes of your whole life. It's nothing, right? So trying to get that across the rest of the team as well, but also making them realize that you need to beat this French team. So get your act together.
This is true too. How was this? Because you've been around forever. How has this changed over the years, for good and bad? What are some of the things that, like, because you were around? I mean, look, in the early 2000s, the internet itself was. If you've seen a web page, it was horrible. Like, a web page from the early 2000s is hilarious if you see it now. They look hilarious. They're so look like it was written on stone. And then obviously that's before social media. Then social media comes, and then now we have live streams, and now we have like things like Sheffield. Now we're on Eurosport, and millions of people might be watching. I don't know which ones are going to be on Eurosport this year, but what are some of the things that you appreciate back in the day, when it was quote unquote simpler times? And what are some of the things that you think now are better that you appreciate from now?
Yeah. So the stuff back in the day when there was no social media and you weren't sharing your training with everyone and no one knew what anybody else was doing and why and what their training methodology was, it felt all a bit more secretive, and, like there was some special secret to success. And I think one of the good things, I guess, is that people realize after social media and seeing what everyone else does, guess what? It's just hard work. Like, you've just got to work hard if you want to be strong, right? Whether it's working hard in a shorter period of time, so you've got to do an awful lot of it, or it's working harder for a longer period of time, so you've got some consistency in your training. But it don't matter which way you look at it. If you look at any world champion, Jesus, compared to me, right? He did it in a very short period of time, incredibly talented, but he's worked his bollocks off in a very short period of time. Whereas I've probably not as genetically gifted, but worked hard over a very long period of time. It's still a lot of work. Like, it doesn't matter which way you go around it, and there's no shortcuts to any of it. You're still going to have to do a lot of work. And I think that's a lot easier now to explain to somebody, because it's very visible, right? You can see what everyone's doing. You know why they're succeeding, because you can log on, you can open their Instagram account, and you can see the work their bollocks off, be it for 2 years or 20 years or whatever. You can see what they've done and why they've done it and how they've got there. One of the terrible things is the exact same thing. Right? So you can immediately compare yourself to everybody else instantly, and you never had to do that when I was growing up and when I was training and I was first competing. And I think if I had, it might have really put me off. Like, God, they're doing this, but they're succeeding in this, and they're doing this, and it's doing this for them, and then I do that and it does nothing for me. Why? You're like, what are they doing differently, or what's the secret? Why am I missing it? I think I'd quite like to see what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
I'd quite like to know that, somebody who trains this hard can be this successful, and somebody else who trains this hard can be really unsuccessful. Oh, you go, okay. So it's very personal, and it's going to be dependent on what I do. And then it might have got me back into the mind straight away of what I have now is, I don't really care what anyone else is doing or how they're doing or how successful they are. I wish them all the best. I just don't give a shit because it doesn't affect me. And that is probably the most important message I'll ever give to anybody on any team, anyone I ever talk to, will be, I only want you to compare yourself to yourself yesterday. And if you can continue to beat that person, you'll get there. You just got to keep going, right? And it doesn't matter if you're beaten by 50 kilos or half a kilo. Just keep going, and then eventually you'll get to where you want to go. But that message. Does that take a long time to learn? Yeah, it probably does, right?
Well, 20 years maybe.
It probably takes 20 years.
You could tell some kid.
Yeah, you could tell somebody. Years. Yeah, I could tell Jack, right? He's 4, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to listen to me. He's going to want to work that out for himself, right? So,
right.
And I think that's the biggest burner from all the social media, and that is you're too involved in everyone else's shit, and just let it go. Like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I always look at this and we'll look at Rondell, and there's like 1,000 kilo total, 1,020 kilo total, 1,050 kilo total, 1,100 kilo total. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter to you either. So anyone who comes and asks me about somebody else's performance, I go, yeah, good for them. I think it's fantastic, and I wish them all the best, and I hope they continue to improve, and it keeps them happy, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? So, when I've been competing against the likes of Mohammed Boufier and people that have failed very strict tests, like, people think that's going to like derail my attitude towards competing or derail my attitude towards the IPF. Or no, they're doing their best. Like, I know they'll do their best to keep it a level playing field. I'm not going to blame those guys for like some failure that happened, and I'm not really going to care if there was a failure that happened, because it doesn't affect me in any way. Not really. Like, okay, yeah, I may have missed the odd medal here or there. I know Mike T wasn't too happy when he heard about Wafia, and may have lost him a couple of world championships. Yeah, that's horrendous. But in the scheme of his training, didn't make no difference, did it? Like, he continued to compete, he continued to improve, continued to get better, concentrated on himself, because that's what he does, and that's what I'd do, and that's the track you've got to stay on. So maybe that, like, going totally off track on this, but
they did catch him at least too, though. At least they got him. Like, I know,
yeah, eventually, but right. They've done the damage like for 4 or 5 years, right? And nobody thinks that somebody who gets caught after they've won a world championship started cheating after they won a world championship, right? The imposition of that is they've been cheating the entire time, and then they've cost somebody of a world championship at some point along their path. And we keep getting these people, and they keep turning up, and Sheffield's going to make it worse, right? Because we're going to get people that are going to see that and see that they could be there, and they're probably going to cheat, and we're going to have to get tighter and tighter and tighter on.
So what I did like about Sheffield,
where we're testing,
they tested the hell out at Sheffield, 100% testing rate.
Yeah,
it's which is nice. At least, I think maybe if they anticipated, look, if we got money like we're throwing out there, and an event that everyone wants, we're gonna have a lot of crossover people from USAPL, from all over the place. If they're like, if you have any failure, I believe I'm not misspeaking here. If you have any failed tests, you're not invited. And it's going to be 100% testing rate, including out of competition. So they were extremely strict. At least they're doing that because I think they probably knew this is going to be enticing. To your point.
Yeah, it was historic. It was historic as well. So like Sergei couldn't get invited in the under 59s because he'd failed the test back in the 90s. I don't know. Maybe it was even later than that, but I'm not sure. So that's positive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice pun.
Yeah, it wasn't intended. But is it going to attract more people to have a go? That's my only concern with the money element. It's always going to be a thing with the money element, right? Because if somebody thinks they can make a living, the reason I think Mohammed Boufier was cheating, because he could make a living from being a powerlifter in Algeria, cheating.
Oh, they got funded. Right?
Yeah, they got funded.
Gotcha.
So do we think that the attraction of there being like these big prizes and potential bonuses and things like that is going to attract more of that ilk? Probably. Just means we have to get better at staying on top of it and getting them out of there as quick as we can when we see it happening. And I do look at the nominations and go, okay. Don't you?
This is the that is the problem with success. Like there's something in terms of like the sport. You've seen it grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we're on Eurosport and all over the world. It's getting bigger and bigger. And as money starts coming in and sponsorships start coming in, and if we ever make it into the Olympics, like, yeah, it is. This isn't just like a powerlifting thing. This is a sports thing, period.
Yeah,
you get big. This is what it is. So it's a double edge, but at least with Sheffield, they're doing things like that. But yeah, that's one of the issues in terms of getting.
It's a good problem to have,
right?
Essentially, like it's a problem that we would wanted to have had 20 years ago. Oh, there's so many people being attracted to our sport, and it's a real problem because they're bringing all these drugs. And okay, we'll just test more. Let's just invest in that and use the money that we're getting through the sponsorships and everything else to make sure that we try and draw a line and be vigilant. I think the thing is, it's hard to be vigilant everywhere, right? All times. And I think the thing, well, we get into this bit, like with the IPF and the WADA and having to be, WADA accredited testing, and the reason for the USAPL split in America, and we had the same pressure put onto us in the UK that everything has to be bona fide third-party testing. It can't be run by the Fed, like coming to the board to say, oh, we've got this positive test, and what we're going to do with it. Like, there's none of that. You can't have any of that, obviously, because that's an opportunity for us to cover stuff up, which is the biggest problem everyone had with USAPL testing being sort of run non-independently, and in involvement of officials of that federation in the testing, like, which may or may not have happened, but don't leave the door open. But then it's so expensive to go the other way that that was eventually the argument that came into the split. But then we look at all of these other nations that are on that list, and you go, well, how much testing are they doing in comparison to what USAPL was doing, be it independent or non-independent? And then you go, okay, so is it riskier to have all of those people tested non-independently versus these people not tested? Which is worse, right? And that's where you get into the debate. And I think from my perspective, I'd like to have everyone apply the same rule, right? If we could do that, that would be fine. But there has to be a minimum level of testing as well.
Yeah, that's why at least there's like testing at the World Championships. They're there and they can start pulling people at least like.
But it's too late by then, right? Because you've already ruined somebody's day. And it come back to the point I made earlier. It won't ruin my day because I care less.
Brett Gibbs talked about it. Happened to Brett Gibbs actually.
It's happened. It's happened to a number. Like, it happened to Mike, right? It happened to Brett. It's happened to me. Where you go and you miss your opportunity on the podium, I think is unforgivable. Where I think if you're on the podium anyway, but you could have been in silver instead of bronze, that doesn't really make a great deal of difference. Probably not. If you're going to be number one and your anthem was supposed to be played and you've missed that opportunity, that is like.
That's what happened to Brett.
Dagger to the heart, right? Yeah.
And he was super obsessed. But at least they caught the guy, and Brett ended up getting the gold. But he said, like Brett said, the first world title he won off podium because after the fact, we tested him, we busted him. Now you're the world champ. But he never got his anthem, on the podium pictures. He's like, it's good on the resume, whatever. But the memory isn't the memory like people think when you win the world.
No, that's horrible. Yeah, that is horrendous, and we need to avoid that. But that's what I mean about testing at Worlds is too late. So that's why all the national testing is it's exactly what the IPF are trying to do, but it feels like contradictory when you talk about the situation in the States. But it's not contradictory. It is just them trying to apply the same rule to every nation. The intention of what the USAPL were doing was right. I think they come to it with the right intention, right? The same attitude towards we don't want any drug cheats, right? And we don't want them at any level in our sport. So if we're going to change it, we want to change it so that it makes it better, not from their view makes it worse. And now I'm arguing on behalf of the USAPL here with the opposite opinion, right? Because I'm like, well, yeah, but we've got to have everybody at the same standard internationally. So if you can't say that you're doing everything at the same standard, but what they should have done is probably said, well, we're going to set the standard for these guys is going to be this minimum number of tests per million members or whatever, like 1,000 members. So they're going to have to do this many tests, or what are accredited, for 2 for every 1,000 members or whatever it was, and so as long as you can meet that standard, you can do anything you want above that. That's what they could have done, and said at least then you'll have a level playing field, and then the US doing slightly more because they're doing their own thing in the background. Don't see why that would have been a problem, but I wasn't negotiating it.
Yeah, I got no idea about those talks. That is some interesting ideas. Although I remember with like Carl Lewis, and again, I might be wrong on this, so don't quote me on this, but didn't he fail a drug test and the American team didn't report it? They kept it internal. So if you do testing within, and it could be above and beyond, or it could be viewed as you're testing to get your boys like, okay, we need to fix this. Right? I'm not saying that happened, by the way. I'm just saying.
Well, you might be right, but what I'm saying is if they had a minimum level of testing at independent level, then you'd expect that minimum level of testing at independent level would cover all of their international lifters, right? That you couldn't possibly have an international lifter that ends up at a competition that hasn't been tested independently,
right?
And then all of their, other lifters, right, lower level,
local level,
local level could be tested for another, through whatever means, because there's no stipulation from the IPF or WADA what you do with them. If you want to do more, go ahead and do more. It's fine, do what you want, but you can't count it towards this level of minimum testing that we're expecting you to do. That's independent. It doesn't, to you or me, it doesn't make any sense to have 2 separate drug tested federations in the United States. Make any sense?
There's probably even more than that, to tell you the truth, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there probably is, right? But there is in the UK, so but another one just makes no sense.
To further dilute. But,
to have like Rondell having to compete separately, and then have Ashton Ruska competing separately to the IPF. But that's crazy. Like, why would we have those guys competing anywhere else? It's nuts. We want those guys here competing against us.
Yeah, hopefully we get Rondell back at some point. Who knows? He'd be a great addition. Ashton, but who knows in the future, right? Who knows what people end up going, because Sheffield's a big puller too. A lot of people saw.
Yeah. Well, Russ is coming back, right? I mean, no one said it yet. Have they said it yet? Surely he's coming back. There's been a lot of like.
Yeah, he obviously has to get through USAPL Raw Nats. He wants to. A lot of people want to finish that, see what happens, and things change, man. What people say in April, and then what people say in September. Things. People flip flop.
Is he got to wait like a full 12 months of not competing anywhere in order to then?
I'm not sure. I think it might only be 6. I don't know about all the different rulings because I think he left the IPF before Powerlifting America became a thing. I think so. I think it was, if you come over to Powerlifting America, then leave the USAPL, you can't come back again for 12 months.
Oh, because you're a member at that point.
That's right. You're a member of that federation, Powerlifting America Federation. I don't think Russ has ever been a member of Powerlifting America. But don't quote me on that. That's what I remember reading somewhere. But again, I haven't read the ruling officially or how they're doing it. He still might end up with a suspension, whether it's 12 months, 6 months, or whatever the heck it is. I'm not entirely sure. So that'll all play a factor as well.
Yeah.
How about you possibly in Sheffield? Holy smokes. That was a bit of a preview for you, because anyone looking at the nominations, you're a very heavy favorite to win the 120s. Have you thought about the whole Sheffield situation and what it'd be like?
Yeah, I'd compete. assuming I was invited, Ben.
Well, if you win,
look, that is the best powerlifting championship I've ever seen, bar none. So let's not sugarcoat this. That is the best powerlifting championship that's ever happened. So why would you not want to compete at it? I mean, you have to be nuts to say no, right? So I sat there in like the third, fourth, or fifth row, and I'm not sure how far back we was on that side, but we were right in the middle of it, cheering for Jesus, going crazy. It was insane, cheering "Ale, Ale" every time a French lifter came on. It was great fun, and honestly, it was that atmosphere. And I know you've sold it on here quite a lot, but like if you watched it online, honestly, it does not do it justice at all. Like it was bonkers, and it was so much fun. Like, so if you'd not been, if you weren't there watching it, like I can't imagine what it was like competing in it. Like, and I know Jacob came on, and she was very honest about coming out in front of that. Like, yeah, I know exactly how she was feeling. Like, because it was crazy. Like it really was.
Would be talk about a life experience. Yeah, being involved in an event like that. The thing is, for you, then, I'm guessing then your plan would be win worlds, but not break the record. You were talking about Dennis Cornelius' record, and you're getting real super duper close. Like, how close are you now? You're 13 kilos away.
I don't even know. I won't. I won't be planning on trying to break it in Malta. I'm not stupid. Like,
yeah, I mean,
money, right? Like, why would you do that? Like, I mean, the only reason I would think about doing that is if Rondell got invited to Sheffield and then I haven't broken it, and then I've got to compete against Rondell and try and break it, and then I'd be like, "What's your opening deadlift, Rondell?"
yeah.
But yeah, that. You know, I'm not stupid. I mean, you're throwing money away if it's an opportunity. But I'll get as close to it as I can without breaking it. That's for sure.
Because I think with Rondell, because he would have to go to Sheffield. I think you got.
Well, you have to do some qualifier, but like I don't know, like a qualifier in America compared to a qualifier in Trinidad could be just does his divisional. So.
I think it'll be tough to sneak in that quickly, though, because I do know they're not trying to set a precedence where people don't go to Worlds. They don't want to take away the value of Worlds, so I think it'd be very.
It'd be difficult to get a wild card if you hadn't. But
that's right.
Isn't the rule at the minute though? You have to compete at a Worlds. It's not like the World previous to that Sheffield. So the wording is a bit. You could interpret it however you want.
You know, yeah, like it's. They have some leeway, but they really are going to think very heavily on people bypassing Worlds. They really don't want to set a precedence where this is going to be the case on a regular basis type deal. Because people will just start being like, you know what, Worlds doesn't work for me this year, but I'll go to Sheffield and I'll go to. It's like, well, hang on, you know what I mean? They don't want to start that too much talk anyway. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that rhetoric is mainly aimed at people like Jesus and Evie, right? They go, they've already got their golden ticket, but you still got to compete at Worlds.
Yeah. Well, that's true too.
Yeah,
but it's huge to have a guy like Jesus at the World Championships. Just him being there is people like we were talking.
Well, that's what I was saying about the supers. You can't not have the best super in the world competing at World Championships. And really, you want him there competing at his best and having some pressure of some kind. I mean, we're looking at not talk down the rest of the people in that nominations. There was no pressure on him to do anything.
It's no one in the world. It's crazy. He's like a man in history. It's he's a victim of success. Like Amanda Lawrence in the 84s, where she's a victim of her own success, where she's just so good and so ahead of the pack. People can emerge, obviously. Like this is powerlifting. People emerge out of nowhere, but it's going to take
I've seen it time and time again. But it's not emerging out of that list of nominations.
No, not for Malta.
Yeah,
not for Malta. But to have him there, like as an event, him walking around the venue and stuff, people like that's the strongest man in the world. That could be the strongest man in history walking around. That's big. That's value as well. Even if he doesn't go all out to break records, if he's squatting 1,000 pounds, he's deadlifting 900 pounds. It's crazy. You want to see it. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to go all out to put on a hell of a show. People are going to see some weight getting shifted. So
the other thing I want to say about Sheffield is, and when I messaged you about it, was saying not having a GB athlete in there from the beginning. Like I know Mo was invited eventually, like and Joy was already in because she'd won Worlds, but I can't imagine if you were putting like this kind of event on in like Estonia or somewhere, like you wouldn't have a Estonian wildcard to get the local people interested. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. It was why I messaged Ben about it, and eventually we had Mo. But like from a marketing perspective and selling tickets in the UK, why you wouldn't have had a GB athlete on that list from the beginning? Tell who is it? Pete Spence. Tell Pete Spence I'd said that, and tell Ben because I keep telling him.
Well, they're listening, I'm sure. But yeah, all's well that ends well. Mo ended up getting on there, and I mean, he had some cramping issues, but he loaded up with a big deadlift and tried to put on a show. He knew the crowd was going crazy, and they freaking loved him. To your point, in terms of the hometown crowd,
yeah.
And he's like, "Load it up, let's go full send." And Mo's got a killer deadlift, and he was a good pick. It was either going to be him or Jurens. I had Jurens on. I haven't dropped the podcast yet. By the time people listen to this one, it'll have been out. And I asked Jurens, like, what did you think about that? And he said, look, what I did at British, it was too late, but I showed I was close to Delaney Wallace. Was I close enough, though, for a record? He's like, because it was based on records, and like the prize money is based on records. He was like, I don't know if I showed enough yet to show I could threaten the total record or an individual record, whereas Mo showed that he could load up on the deadlift and he could make threats like that and go for world records, and that's where a check gets handed out and get the crowd rally behind. Okay, he's going for it, whatever. So he's like, in terms of that, he's like, I probably would have picked Mo as well, and I'm at peace with it. But now he's got the opportunity at the World Championships. Let's see what happens, man. If Great Britain can get you, well, you're a heavy favorite to be a world champion. And obviously, he's in a battle with the 83s. Joy Namani's moved to 63. So there could be several people from the UK at Sheffield. Who else is there? Is there anyone else I'm not thinking of? You guys are the top heavy guns, though, for sure.
I think you're there. Christian, I think he's got a shot. Might be a bit of a stretch to win it, but he'll make the podium, I think.
But it'd be good to see if all you guys make it. Like, oh my gosh! Now the 63s is going to be tough because Joy's moved up. It depends on.
That's a tough class, man.
If she stayed 57, but that's you got Natalie Richards.
You got
Bobby. Bobby, that's right. Thank you. Bobby's in there. I mean, she's got it tough because the 57s is stacked too. What class isn't stacked this year, right? But
they're all. That's what I mean. They all seem mental, apart from Jesus and the 120s.
And 120s, yeah.
But I've seen that before in the nominations though, and gone. Somebody could turn up with a 960, 970 total, and then it's game on and flight time, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it wouldn't be a surprise. So I go into it with that attitude as well. It's like nothing is secure, and you've got to deliver, and you've got to. I've got to beat 955.5. If I do that, I think I win. Right? That's my attitude on it. I think if I can do that, and I feel capable of that, then we're all good.
Have you ever thought about moving up to 120 plus like Jank did?
No, not my age. But if I was going to do it, I'd probably done it 10 years ago. And if I was 10 years ago, would I have done it? Probably not. So, no.
Not even just once to see what happens? Like, if you ever...
Well, and I competed at the World Games as, weighing like 127.
Okay.
Did a 1,112 and a half equipped. Right. But, ended up being the podium was all of the regular under 120s and me being fat. So it didn't really make any difference.
Gotcha. So you're like, well, I got fat for no reason. And
it's pointless.
That's all right. That's fair enough. It is what it is. Fair enough. Do you want to play the name game, sir?
Oh, I definitely do. Yeah.
Okay. So for anyone listening, if you haven't heard this before, I drop a name, whether it's just one word, 2 words, story, whatever the heck. There is no right and wrong answers, but it could literally be as short as 1 word answers. We'll kick it off, sir. Taylor Atwood.
Nice hair.
You ain't lying. Russell Orhe.
Cocky.
Konstantin Musayev.
Who?
Oh, wow. There is a little trash talk in you. Eric Willis.
Friend.
Indy Sai.
Big puller.
Well done. Rondell Hunt.
Strong.
Dennis Cornelius.
Big, baldy, beer drinking buddy.
Kieran Gray.
Strong dude. Unlucky, really. I think, largely. I think he should have been on the team, really. If it was so close between the two of them. He'll be back.
He's won Europeans, and he's an excellent lifter. He'll be back.
Yeah, man, I have no doubt about it. Like, if he turns up to the next British and does like a 9:35, I wouldn't be surprised.
Sank Kochak.
Beast.
Jesus Oliveras.
Legend.
Yeah. So listen, man, thank you for coming on the podcast. Much appreciated. And good luck with training. And I'll see you in a month in Malta.
Thank you, buddy. All right, take care. Speak to you later.
We'll see how it works. And everybody listening, please do subscribe. Give us high ratings. We will repost if you tag us. Until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.